Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Answers on Eschatology. My name is Dan Derry, and I'm the president of the Institute of Fulfilled Eschatology. We're in the middle of a study on Matthew 24, and I'm going to share some more thoughts this evening with you out of verse 30. Now, specifically, I want to focus in on the middle portion of this text once again, where Jesus says, "And all the tribes of the earth shall mourn." Now, in the last several videos, we've tried to demonstrate that Jesus is not thinking, he's not referring to a worldwide mourning of every person on the planet Earth sometime in our future over a worldwide great tribulation. He is referring to the 12 tribes of Israel. All tribes of the land, that is the land of Israel, will mourn when they understand that the Son of Man, who had been seated and enthroned in heaven, had now come in judgment upon them. That's the reference. That's the context and the flow of Matthew 24. And it is shocking to me that Bible scholars and Bible teachers don't see the connection between his phrase, his prophecy in Matthew 24:30, "All the tribes of the earth shall mourn," and his previous teachings throughout his ministry. Over and over and over, Jesus had prophesied, had told his generation that if they would not receive him as Messiah and enter his kingdom, that they would be judged, that they would be, the kingdom would be taken from them, they would be cut off from the kingdom, and there would be weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. Jesus is simply reiterating in Matthew 24:30 what he had taught over and over and over again throughout his entire ministry. We looked at Luke 23 last video, and I want to demonstrate this once again out of Luke 13 in this video. And here's the cool thing about what we're going to be looking at in the next few videos is that even outside of the prophetic source of Matthew 24:30, which is Zechariah 12 verse 10 specifically, we can look at his previous teachings and understand that he's referring to his first century generation, that he's referring to a Jewish mourning. We'll get to Zechariah 12:10, and that's definitive proof that it was the mourning of the Jews. But his teachings alone in the rest of the New Testament are proof positive that this is not a future to us global mourning amidst Messiah. It is a national Jewish mourning that he prophesied to come upon his generation. Go with me to Luke 13. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to pick this up in verse 22. We'll read down to 29. Watch this. "And as he was passing through from one city and village to another, teaching and proceeding on his way to Jerusalem, and someone said to him, 'Lord, are there just a few who are being saved?' And he said to them," now catch the context again. Who's he speaking to? Who's he ministering to? Jesus was a minister to the circumcision. Romans 15 verse 8, his ministry was to the Jews. This is a Jew asking him, "Lord, are there many who are being saved?" Okay? Now watch this. Jesus said to him, "Strive to enter through the narrow door, for many, I tell you, will seek to enter and will not be able." He's talking about a Jewish salvation. Many of the Jews will seek to enter and they will not be able. Verse 25, "Once the head of the house gets up and shuts the door, and you begin to stand outside and knock on the door, saying, 'Lord, open to us,' then he will answer and say to you, 'I do not know where you are from.' Then you will begin to say," now listen, a Jew was asking Jesus about salvation. Now he's saying, "You will begin to say." Now this Jew represents Israel, okay? He represents the nation. When Jesus says, "You will begin to say," he's talking about you and your countrymen. You will begin to say. Now watch the audience relevance here. This is so powerful. "We ate and drank in your presence, and you taught in our streets." Now ask yourself a question. Is there any possible way we can force this text into our future? Did Jesus teach in your streets or my streets? Did you or I eat and drink in his presence? You see, this has to be seen and interpreted as a first century context and a first century understanding. It was those Jews of the first century that ate and drank in his presence, and he taught in their streets. You see this? This is so powerful. Verse 27, but watch this. And he will say, I tell you, I do not know where you are from. Depart from me, you workers of iniquity. Verse 28, in that place, where? Outside the door that is shut, outside the gate. See, this is temple imagery. This is city imagery. The imagery here is that there is Jews coming to Messiah now, seeking to enter the New Jerusalem, the temple, the presence of Jehovah, but the gate shut. The door is shut to the city. Watch this. In that place, outside the city, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. What did Jesus say in Matthew 24? When they understood that they were being judged, Matthew 24:29, then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn. That's what Jesus is teaching in Luke 13. When they understood that the door had been shut, they had been rejected, there was no entrance into the city, into the kingdom, into the temple and the presence of God, there will be weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth in that place. You see this? Jesus is simply reiterating in Matthew 24 what he taught in Luke 13. But watch this. There will be weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth when you, that's the Jews of his day, see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all the prophets in the kingdom of God, but you yourselves being thrown out. That's the context of Matthew chapter 24. The old covenant kingdom was being judged and destroyed, and they who belonged to that kingdom, the Jews of the first century, were being thrown out. It's not a coincidence that in Luke 21, the parallel text to Matthew 24, the parallel discourse, Jesus says, after the tribulation of those days, after the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven, he says, at that time, lift up your heads, because the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God, has drawn near. You see, the kingdom had been taken from Old Covenant Israel. It had been destroyed as that Old Covenant kingdom form, and it was being given and received by another nation, by another people in a new covenant form, in a spiritual identity. This is powerful. This is exactly what Jesus is teaching in Matthew 24, verse 30. Those who had understood that they missed his kingdom, those that had seen Jerusalem judged and destroyed, would weep and wail. They would gnash their teeth. And all the tribes of the land, all 12 tribes of Israel, understood that their kingdom had been taken from them and given to another nation. That's Matthew 24. That's Luke 13. Jesus was simply reiterating what he had taught over and over and over in his ministry to the Jews of his generation. Those who would reject him would be judged. The kingdom would be taken from them. And they would see, they would understand that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who are they? That's the righteous remnant of Israel. They had received their kingdom, but those who had rejected that kingdom, rejected the scriptures that spoke of Moses, that spoke of Abraham, that spoke of Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom, they would be cast out. And listen, we got lots more to say on Matthew 24:30. We'll pick it up next time on Answers on Eschatology. Bye for now.